How do you tell if a rabbit is show quality or if it is actually going to do well or if it's going to meet your show goals? The disappointing factor of this is just because it's show quality does not mean it's going to do well or that it's at the top of the food chain when it comes to a rabbit's quality. I've been raising French Lops for over 15 years, and so many times I see people ask the wrong question when it comes to like a rabbit's history or making purchasing decisions based on past winnings or making a judgment on how many legs a rabbit has, not their physical legs, but a leg as a certification or a certificate of placement based on how many showers or people, exhibitors there were, on top of how many animals were in that class. Here's the thing. Just because the rabbit won well that day does not mean they're a great rabbit. It just means that they were the best of the rabbits that showed up. And so I truthfully don't give a rip about what a rabbit has won in the past. I care about the flesh condition, the conformation of how they look right now here in front of me. I don't care if honestly, I don't even care if they've won their grand championship certificate. I just care how they look now, potentially if I'm really heavily into showing in the current season, that they have the potential to do that, or if they're going to produce really good looking babies for me. Because the truth of the matter is that show winnings really don't increase the value of the animal or the potential income of if you're raising them to, at the very minimum, pay for themselves. So what makes a rabbit show quality or showable? Here are the basics or the minimums that they need to either have or not have in order to be on the show table. So they have to meet the breed standard minimums. So just because they meet the breed standard doesn't mean they look all that great. They can have a lot of lacking areas. You can buy Rabbitry Standard for about $25 off of the ARBA.net. You can get it from them. Sometimes you might find them off of eBay, but you're most likely going to get the best price there. So if you are going to be in raising rabbits long term, I would recommend grabbing one. You don't have to buy a new one every 4 years when they tend to update it. Just make sure that your breed that you raise, nothing has changed with that. They also have to meet the weight requirements, either for their age group or for the standard overall. They need to meet the color requirements. So if they are an unrecognized color, or if they have been a part of a development program to where maybe they're trying to get the color recognized, but they happen to have something that's not showable yet, that doesn't make them show quality. Their fur needs to be in decent condition, or like they can't be, some judges will allow it, but they can be disqualified for massive molting. Coloration is wrong, or now I'll get into this later, but if it's obvious that you tried to fix a color, that was a problem. Or they also the fur texture needs to be what it should be. So with French Lops, they can throw a woolly French Lop. So sometimes Angoras were used in them to help develop the breed, and I've had it like once or twice. And so that animal would not be showable because he had a wool coat. So obviously that made him a pet, and he went to a pet home. And then once again, they need to be a recognized show color. So they might be a purebred French Lop, but for example, as of 2025 in early fall, the otter color has not been recognized yet. Things like that. So this comes down to just really knowing your breed, and really having a breed standard that is up to date is probably the simplest way to have all the information at your fingertips. So to be entered into a show, what's required at that level? It's really not as complicated as people make it out to be, and it's a lot of the fear is just nerves. They need to have an ID number tattooed in their left ear. So it's this one, and I'll show a picture of one, but it's tattooed in their ear, and it needs to be legible. So if it's a really poor one and they can't read it, technically a judge can disqualify them. The other thing that I've seen rabbits get disqualified for, or essentially just the judge is like, I'm not dealing with that one, is severe aggression. So some breeds are just not calm. Like, this is not all breeds. But I have seen like a doe that really needed bred. She was just massively hormonal, and she got kicked off because she was unhandleable. You couldn't pose her. You couldn't really get a hold of her without honestly getting attacked. And so I've seen that be removed. I have seen rabbits, the judge may make comments on them, but if they're in severe molt, they won't place at the very least, or they could be disqualified. So severe molt would be like not just a little bit of hair loss from the seasonal molt, but like chunks or bald spots where the fur really hasn't come back in yet. They're just not showable yet. So let me show you this guy. Let's see how close. You can kind of tell it from here, but kind of see he is finishing up a molt, but right here you can kind of see the coloration line. This browner stuff is dead fur that just needs to come out. And this is his new color coat. He's a blue chinchilla, well, broken blue chinchilla. But I mean, I could take him, but I wouldn't expect much because of this. Now, depending on the number that are there, they might go ahead and place him. But if I had a buck that was in another, a little bit better condition and kind of equal in conformation, he would probably place underneath him. You can really see it now. And so the other thing with rabbits is that can get them disqualified is, like, for him, he needs to have all white nails because he's a broken. If he was a solid blue chinchilla, his nails would be more of a gray color. So if like one got pulled and if he was a solid and it grew back white, then depending on if the judge catched it or not, he could just be disqualified for that. In this instance, if it grew back black like a darker or a gray color, then that could get him disqualified. So you want the nail colors to be what they're supposed to be. Something that I mentioned before was if you notice, like, if a black rabbit has some white hairs and you try and color it or use a marker to make it less noticeable or anything like that, technically that could get you disqualified and even banned from ARBA shows. So don't do it. Anything like they want the rabbit in its natural state. It's not like cattle shows. It's not like horse shows where you put as much makeup on the animal as you can to make them look pretty, right? In short, a show quality rabbit simply means that they can be put on the show table and not disqualified. The next step from there for you would be to learn the conformation as best as possible in order for you to know what you are looking for in your animal. But more than that, I would highly encourage you to know your goals and why are you buying it? Are you trying to really just get your kid a 4-H pet that this depends on how the show is run, but there are certain things where you could just get an interview type animal for, there's like My Pet Project, or there is a breeding animal project, but it's essentially in a lot of counties now, a lot of the breeds are judged against each other, not breed to breed, like same breeds to each other, which for a lot of breeds, including French Lops, would really put them lower at the chance of winning. And so knowing what your goals are and what the potential is will help you a lot. And it will help you know what should you be spending on an animal when it gets to that point. So when someone asks me, are your rabbits show quality? The answer is yes, because they have pedigrees. There's no genetic disqualifications. They don't have any non-genetic disqualifications. And so that would be something like they got injured and maybe an ear was nipped or ripped, like from mama or from siblings, things like that, that make them a brood animal to where they would still produce great animals, but they can't go on the show table. So if you have the space and you are willing to take those on, then that's fine. But just know that just because they are show quality doesn't mean they will win. So what is a pet quality? A pet quality essentially is obviously a non-showable animal, or if someone says brood quality, it's something to where they will still produce good animals, but they're not showable. Or they're potentially, you could show them, but they're just not going to do as well. So that might be a doe that she's middle-aged and when they're out of a better flesh condition, they're just not going to do as well. It could be something like a non-genetic disqualification to where they were bit or the ear was nipped. That happens a lot with French Lops, even other breeds too. Making sure he's not getting in trouble. And to where it's just it's not going to affect their offspring. And now here's the other thing too I want you to remember is that if you are just looking for a pet, ask about the temperament, because a doe is never recommended for a pet. I just don't, even if you plan to fix it, like surgically fix it, not like fix a broken nail or ear or something. But I don't know that helps. I really don't think it probably does that much. And so the boys are the better pets. They can have a pedigree. They can have their ID number done. And I still think that is of value to a pet buyer. But a pet quality is not recommended for reproduction. And they are not typically, if the person is, describing them correctly, then they are not showable either. And just as a reminder, if you are looking for one to show and you're new to it, know that even if you buy the best you know, you can have a rabbit that will do well in one show and bomb the next. So the example that really drove this home for me, this was a while ago, but I had a doe that she won best in show A. So rabbit shows typically have at least 2 to 3 shows happening all at once. But then in show B, she was like middle of the class for her class. So in other words, the rabbits are shown by their pattern or color and then their age group. So in her age group for solid senior does, she was in the middle in the second show, but in the first show, she won the entire show. So it's just like, and that was the same day. And so literally it's a judge's opinion. It is based off of who shows up when, and you just can't make final judgment calls on one show and, again, someone else's opinion. And so that's why you have to know the conformation, the type, the breed you're not the breed, but the features you're going for. So just learn what you can and know that, like, if you enjoy the animal, that's what matters most. I hope this helps you understand a little bit more about what's pet quality, what's show quality, what to expect, what does some of this verbiage mean. So if you know someone who is just getting into showing, or you have a group of friends who this video would help, share it with them, and I will see you in the next video.